Hi guys, welcome back. It's Thursday, so I'm back with another video. If you're new here, my name is Melissa Crafter. I create custom epoxy-free tumblers along with other crafts. In this week's video, I'm going to be showing you how I did this split tumbler where half of it is fabric and the other half is Tangram. If that is something that you're interested in, please continue watching. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask that in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Really quick, I wanted to mention that I did get this idea from another YouTube creator. I was inspired by Sarah over at Bam's Custom Creations. After watching her video where she created a glitter tangram leopard tumbler tutorial, I'll go ahead and link her YouTube channel down below. She does awesome tumbler tutorials. I just wanted to mention that really quick so that I can give credit to where it's due. So I started off with a prep tumbler. This tumbler here I did sand and spray paint. I have a video on how to prep your tumblers. I'll go ahead and link it right here on the right hand corner as well as in the video description. And then here is the fabric that I'm going to be using. I purchased this fabric here at Hobby Lobby. I'll link this fabric down below as well as everything else that I use in the video description. So here's my tumbler and I did cut off this piece. Since this is going to be a split tumbler, it's going to be half fabric and then half tangram, I am going to just do a small piece of the fabric. The tumbler that I'm using here is a Hog straight 20-ounce tumbler, which has the dimensions of 9.1 by 8.1. So I did cut this fabric 4.5 for the width, and then I did do the height a little bit bigger, but I am going to cut it later on. Using fabric on your tumblers is a fun and inexpensive way to customize your tumblers. You can do a full wrap with the fabric tumblers. Here I'm going to be doing a split tumbler, so I'm going to be doing half of the tumbler fabric and then the other half tangram. So here I'm using glitter glue from the Crystalac company to go ahead and adhere my fabric. Glitter glue is an adhesive that is perfect for adhering and sealing all your crafting projects. It's a water-based permanent bonding glue that bonds to most surfaces, including glass, plastic, metal, ceramic, wood, fabric, paper, and more. This glitter glue is from the Crystalac company. You can purchase it at the crystalacstore.com. I'll also link it down below in the video description if you guys want to check it out. So here I'm going to go ahead and add a thin coat of this glitter glue using this flat Taklon brush. And I'm just going to add a thin coat to go ahead and add my fabric on with. Once I have my coat of glitter glue on there, I'm going to go ahead and lay down my fabric, and I'm going to try to position it as straight as possible. It is going to have extra fabric at the top and the bottom right now at this point, but I am going to go ahead and go in and cut it later on. So right now I'm just focusing on trying to place this as straight as possible and getting it to adhere well on my tumbler. Now that I have it positioned where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and use my fingers and kind of press down on it and make sure that it's well adhered. I am going to go in with a little bit of the glitter glue and add a little bit more along the edges, just because I want that part there to be well adhered onto my tumbler. And it tends to lift since I haven't cut it yet, so I'm going to go in and just kind of press down on it a little bit to make sure that it's well adhered at those areas. Immediately after adding my fabric on there, I'm going to go in with Crystalac glitter glue again, and I'm going to add a coat of glitter glue on top of my fabric. It does go on white, but it does dry off clear, so don't worry if it looks white at this point. It'll dry off clear. Once I add this coat of my glitter glue on top of my fabric, I'm going to go ahead and allow this to dry for 2 hours. Crystalac's glitter glue does need 2 hours of dry time in between each coat. So I'm going to allow this to dry for 2 hours, and then I'm going to repeat this step twice, 2 more times. I'm going to add 2 more coats of the glitter glue on top of my fabric just to make sure that it's well adhered onto my tumbler. Now that my cup has dried off for 2 hours, I'm going to go ahead and trim my edges. If you have a cup edging tool, definitely use that. I don't have one. I did order one. It just hasn't gotten here yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim my edges the old-fashioned way and use an X-Acto knife. So here I am just laying down some painter's tape as straight as possible to go ahead and use as my outline to where I want to cut it. If you are doing it this way, you do want to be sure to have a new blade on your X-Acto knife. This helps cut it out, in a straight line and not have any issues or having to have to go back and recut it a couple of times. It'll cut it on the first time. So just have a new blade and do be careful when you are cutting it this way. If you are using an X-Acto knife, anytime that you are using an X-Acto knife, you do want to be careful. Especially when you are working near the rim or the edge of the cup. I did leave a little bit off the top and a little bit off the bottom exposed because I am going to add glitter there. So I did cut it a little bit away from the top and the bottom. So now that I have that cut, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more coats of Crystalac's glitter glue on top of my fabric. Here, my son wanted to help, so he's here doing a little bit of the work. And then I'm going to go ahead and allow this to dry for 2 hours before I add another coat of glitter glue. So here my cup has dried off and I'm going to go ahead and add a third coat of the glitter glue on top of my fabric. You want to be sure to add a couple coats of glitter glue on top of your fabric to ensure that your fabric is well adhered onto your tumbler. I like to add at least 3 coats of glitter glue on top of my fabric. So after I add this third coat, I'm going to allow this to dry for the 2 hours that the glitter glue needs to fully dry. So here I'm going to begin adding my glitter. I'm going to glitter the other half of my tumbler that doesn't have the fabric on it. To do this, I'm going to go ahead and tape off the part where the fabric is just so that I won't get any glitter on that part. I am taping this off using painter's tape. I'm then going to go in with my X-Acto knife and just cut off the excess painter's tape. To glitter my cup, I'm going to be using Crystalac's glitter glue, and I am going to add it here on this container, and I'm going to add a few drops of the Crystalac's concentrated pigment number 2, which is a red pigment. I'm going to do this so that I can kind of tint my glitter glue up a little bit. I did base coat my tumbler white and not red to match my glitter. I'm just kind of tinting the glitter glue up a little bit. That way it can help out my glitter. I'm then going to go in with more painter's tape and just cover the entire fabric just to be sure that I don't get any of the glitter glue on there or the glitter. With this Wet n Wild makeup brush, I'm going to go ahead and brush on my glitter glue. I'm going to go ahead and add a nice thin even coat of my glitter glue here onto my tumbler. Now that I have that on there, I'm going to go ahead and add my glitter. The glitter I'm going to be using is called Crimson, and it is from Glitzy Girl Glitters. This glitter here is the Perfect Red, and it is a chunky and fine glitter blend. I do have a discount code with Glitzy Girl Glitters. The discount code is MelissaCrafter10. I'll go ahead and put it on this frame as well as down below in the video description. I'll go ahead and link the Glitzy Girl website down below. They have tons of beautiful glitters for you guys to check out. So here, after this first coat of glitter, I am going to allow this coat here to dry for 2 hours, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a second coat of glitter. So here my cup has dried off for 2 hours, and I'm going to go ahead and add a second coat of glitter. Here I'm taking a brush and brushing off any of the loose glitter that didn't adhere onto my cup. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another coat of glitter glue directly on top of my first coat of glitter. I have a nice thin even coat on my cup, I'm going to go ahead and add a second coat of glitter. Now that I have my second coat of glitter here, I'm going to take an old gift card and just kind of press down on my glitter just to kind of get it as flat as possible, and laying down on my cup. So here I'm removing my painter's tape, and I'm going to go ahead and allow this second coat of glitter to dry for that 2 hours that Crystalac's glitter glue needs to fully dry. So here my second coat of glitter has dried off for 2 hours, and I'm going to begin to seal my glitter using Crystalac's glitter glue as well. I am going to take a little bit of water and kind of dip my brush into the water just to kind of have a damp brush. That way it'll help my glitter glue kind of glide on top of my glitter. This part here is called sealing and flattening down your glitter using parchment paper. You want to be sure to seal your glitter, that way you have a protective barrier in between your bright tone and your glitter. And you want to go ahead and flatten with parchment paper, that way you get your glitter as flat as possible. That way when you begin your coats of bright tone, you can achieve a glossy cup with less coats of bright tone. To seal and flatten down your glitter, you're going to want to add a coat of glitter glue, as I'm doing now. After I add this coat of glitter glue, I'm going to allow this to dry for an hour. After that 1 hour, I'm going to go in with parchment paper to try to flatten down my glitter as much as possible. And after flattening down my glitter with parchment paper, I'm going to allow this coat of glitter glue to dry for that additional hour that glitter glue needs to fully dry. So now an hour has gone by, and I'm going to go ahead and take some parchment paper and roll my cup in the parchment paper. I'm going to use my hands and kind of press down towards the table and roll my cup just to kind of get my glitter as flat as possible. You don't want to skip this step, especially when working with chunky glitter. You want to get it as flat as possible. That way when you go and begin adding your coats of bright tone, you can achieve a glossy cup with less coats of bright tone since your glitter is laying flat. I did repeat this step twice, but I didn't film it. I did seal and flatten down my glitter using parchment paper twice, just to ensure that my glitter was well sealed and laying as flat as possible. After flattening it down with parchment paper, as I'm doing now, I allowed this coat of glitter glue to dry for that additional hour that Crystalac's glitter glue needs to fully dry. And then I did go in and add another coat of glitter glue on top of my glitter, and then allowed that to dry for an hour, and then went in with my parchment paper to roll my cup and get it as flat, my glitter as flat as possible, and then allowed that second coat of glitter glue on top of my glitter to dry for that additional hour. This is what bright tone looks like. This is what I use as my top coat to gloss of my cups. It is an epoxy free alternative. It is a water-based non-toxic top coat. Since it is non-toxic, it is completely safe to use even indoors. You can purchase bright tone at the crystalacstore.com. I'll go ahead and link it down below if you guys want to check it out. This here is the gallon size. They do offer smaller options. I do transfer my bright tone onto a condiment bottle for easier application onto my tumblers. So here I'm going to go ahead and add my first coat of bright tone. I have my bright tone inside of my condiment bottle, and I'm going to go ahead and begin coating my cup with bright tone. Every coat is added the same. You want to add a thin coat, just enough to where your cup isn't dripping. With bright tone, you are adding thin coats and you're building up your gloss with thin coats. I personally use my hand to add my bright tone coats with. You can definitely use a brush, or you can also wear gloves. Definitely up to you. Once you add a coat of bright tone to your cup, you want to go ahead and allow your cup to spin for an hour and then dry for an additional 3 hours to total 4 hours of dry time in between each coat. I don't film every coat I give my cup simply because every coat of bright tone is added the same. So I'm going to go ahead and continue coating my cup with bright tone. And since I am working with chunky glitter here, I'm going to add about 4 to 5 coats of bright tone before I do go in and sand my cup. So here, after my 5th coat of bright tone, I'm going to go ahead and take my cup outside and sand my cup. Sanding helps smoothen out your cup. That way you can achieve a glossy cup with less coats of bright tone. So here I'm just going to go ahead and give my cup a good sand. I usually sand with 400 grit sanding paper, but I didn't have any, so I'm just going in with 600 grit sanding paper here. And I'm going to give my cup a good sand. want to be sure to also sand the bottom as well as the rim area of your cup. After I sand my cup, I'm going to go ahead and just wipe it with a lint-free cloth and then take it back inside and continue coating my cup with Bright Tone. So here I'm going to add my 6th coat of Bright Tone. Since I am working with chunky glitter here, it is going to take a few more coats to get through the glitter. So here I'm going to continue coating my cup with Bright Tone until my cup is smooth enough for decals. You definitely don't want to add any decals to your cup if your cup is still bumpy from the glitter. If you do, in turn, your decals will be bumpy. So you want to continue coating your cup until it is smooth enough to where you can add your decals. So as I mentioned earlier, you want to continue coating your cup, adding just a thin coat of Bright Tone with each coat. And then allow your cup to spin for an hour and then dry for an additional 3 hours to total 4 hours of dry time. And I'm going to continue doing this every 4 hours. While I continue coating my cup, I'm going to go ahead and begin working on my decals. This here is the Tangram file that I bought. It is an SVG file and I bought it from Etsy. The Etsy shop is called Julie SVG Print. It was $2, and once I purchased it, I went ahead and downloaded it to my computer and then uploaded it onto Design Space. The dimensions for my tumbler, as I mentioned earlier, were 9.1 by 8.1. So this is how I did size my Tangram SVG here. Since I am only doing half Tangram and half fabric on my tumbler, I am going to go ahead and cut this in half. You can do it by hand, but I'm going to go ahead and slice it here on Design Space. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and on the left-hand corner, insert a shape. I'm going to insert a square. Once I have that square there, I'm going to go ahead and at the 4.5 point, I'm going to go ahead and put my square and then I'm going to drag it down to cover the right part of my Tangram SVG here. Once I have that covered, I'm going to go ahead and select both of them, and then on the right hand side at the bottom, I'm going to click on slice. Once I click on slice, it's going to cut that in half, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove the excess parts. To delete them, I'm just going to click on the X here, and that's how I'll have them removed. So here I have my half of the Tangram that I'm going to add on my tumbler. And then I am going to go ahead and duplicate this since I am going to need 3. To do that, I'm going to make sure my SVG is selected, and then on the right hand corner at the top, I'm going to click on duplicate and I'm going to click it twice to make sure that I have 3. One of them I'm going to use as my removable vinyl Tangram guide, and then the other 2 I'm going to do the red and the green. I'm going to go ahead and send it over to my Cricut and then have my Cricut cut out all 3 of them. Here I'm using my Cricut Explore Air 2 and I have it on the Vinyl Plus setting, and I am cutting on a 12 by 24 mat. So now that I have my SVG files cut out, I'm going to go ahead and use my Cricut tool here to weed out the excess vinyl. So here I have my Tangram design, and this is what I'm going to go ahead and lay down on my cup as a guide. This I did use gray removable vinyl since I am going to be removing it and replacing it with the green and the white vinyl. So here I am going to add, where I have the W's, I am going to add my white vinyl that I have cut out with my Tangram design. And where I have the G's, I'm going to go ahead and leave it with the glitter. And then where I have green, I'm going to go ahead and add my green vinyl here that I already have cut out with my Tangram design as well. With Tangram, you can definitely play around with the colors and move them around depending on how you want your cup to look. This can be considered a cheat Tangram since you are first laying your glitter down and then placing vinyl pieces on top to create that Tangram effect. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of transfer tape onto my Tangram guide here so that I can go ahead and adhere it to my cup. Here I'm just using my scraper tool to make sure I don't have any air bubbles, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer this on to my tumbler. I'm going to go ahead and align it here where my fabric ends and try to align it as best as I could. And then using my scraper tool and my hand, I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is well adhered onto my cup. And I'm going to take my time with this because I don't want any air bubbles on here. So I'm going to make sure that I press down on it and make sure that this is well adhered. Now that I have that on there, I'm going to go ahead and remove the transfer tape. So now I'm going to begin removing the gray and replacing it with the white and the green vinyl. I am going to make sure that it is the same exact piece that corresponds to that spot on the Tangram design. That way it will fit perfect and it'll match. Here I'm removing all the W's on the first row and I'm replacing it with the same exact piece that corresponds to that spot. To remove it, I'm using a Cricut weeding tool and I'm just going down and counting to make sure that I am replacing the gray vinyl with the white vinyl that corresponds to that spot. So here I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video and I'm going to continue doing this, removing all the pieces that are labeled with the W, and I'm going to replace it with the white vinyl pieces. Again, I'm making sure that they do correspond with the same exact piece that belongs in that spot. Now that I am done with the white, I'm going to go ahead and begin removing the pieces that are labeled with the green, and I'm going to be replacing it with the green vinyl. And again, I'm going to just do the same thing, make sure that I'm replacing it with the same piece that belongs in that spot. So here, now that I have my green, I'm just going to go ahead and begin removing all the G's to go ahead and expose my glitter. Here I have removed all the gray vinyl and I replaced it with the white and the green, and I've also exposed the glitter. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and do the strips that I'm going to add on to my Tangram design. First, I'm going to do my diagonal lines, and to do this, I went ahead and inserted a square, and then I resized it to 0.82 by 0.05. These are the smaller strips that I'm going to be adding in between each color, so I'm going to go ahead and send it over to my Cricut and do 100 copies. I am then also going to cut out my vertical lines that I'm going to add on to my Tangram design. These I'm going to resize to 9 by 0.05 and then also send over to my Cricut to cut out. So here my Cricut has cut out my strips and I'm going to go ahead and weed these out. I also did cut out thicker strips that I'm going to be adding around my fabric design. I forgot to film that, but I just did them a little thicker than the ones that I am going to add as vertical lines. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my diagonal strips onto my Tangram design. I'm going to go ahead and add it on top and underneath each one of the colors to kind of divide each color. The only time I didn't add a strip here to divide the colors was when two of the glitters were together. So I'm just here adding these strips. You'll see me here not add a strip in between both of the green when they are together, but I do go on in later on and add a strip in between the green. This part here does take a little bit of time since I am going in and making sure each of the strips is added on straight. So I am going to go ahead and speed up the video here. Now that I have added my diagonal strips, I'm going to go ahead and add my vertical lines here that I'm going to add around my fabric design. Here I'm just going in with my X-Acto knife to kind of cut off the excess since I did cut them a little bit bigger. Now that I've added that, I'm going to go ahead and add my thinner vertical lines that I'm going to add onto my Tangram design. I did cut them a little bit longer, so I am going to go in with my X-Acto knife in just a little bit to go ahead and cut them. I'm also going to be cutting it off where there is two glitters that are together. I'm going to go ahead and just cut it using my X-Acto knife. I'm just going to cut that piece off. And here you'll see me adding the diagonal strips in between each of the green vinyls. Now that I have my Tangram design here already on my cup, I'm going to go ahead and continue coating my cup until I'm satisfied with the gloss finish. As I mentioned, I don't record every coat that I give my cup simply because every coat is added the same. I'm going to go ahead and add a thin coat of bright tone, allow that to spin for an hour, and then dry for an additional 3 hours to total 4 hours of dry time. And I'm going to continue coating my cup every 4 hours until I'm satisfied with the gloss finish. So here's how my tumbler turned out. I absolutely love how this split tumbler turned out. I haven't seen a tumbler where half of it is fabric and the other half is Tangram, so it was so fun doing this. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you guys have any video suggestions for me that you guys would like to see on my channel, go ahead and drop that down in the comments as well. And be sure to follow me on Instagram. My Instagram name is MelissaCrafter00. Thank you.